Russell Kerr is New Zealand's most renowned and prolific ballet choreographer, respected for his ability to tell stories through richly musical movement drawn from both classical and everyday sources. His impact on the development of ballet in New Zealand has been profound, not only as a choreographer, but also as a teacher and mentor to generations of dancers, and director and producer of over 65 works for companies including Auckland Ballet Theatre, the Royal New Zealand Ballet, Limbs Dance Company and Southern Ballet Theatre. Russell was born in Auckland in 1930 and studied ballet in his teens in Auckland with Kathleen Whitford. In 1950, he was awarded a New Zealand government bursary and travelled to Europe for further training. While ballet was his primary focus, he was also drawn to the richly complex rhythms of flamenco and seized the opportunity to immerse himself in its forms by dancing with the Jose Greco Company before returning to ballet. For the next 6 years, Russell was based in the UK, dancing first with Sadler's Wells Royal Ballet and Ballet Rambert before joining London Festival Ballet in 1952. Equally talented in dance and music, with acting ability and a prodigious memory, he became renowned as a dancer with deeply informed musicality and outstanding dramatic expression. While at London Festival Ballet, he particularly enjoyed the full-length classical works from the Petipa Ivanov repertoire, becoming the principal character dancer until 1957.
What I want you to do is just put all your attention right into David's head. David, that's right. Not too tense. Just you're fairly relaxed, and it's only when they start moving that you're going to feel that this is going to tense up. Right, now really get your eyes boring right into his skull here, right into his back. All right, now slowly just reach out your arms towards him. Right out, now slowly, that's it. Now don't let the fingers turn upwards, that just take it all up there. Put your fingers right into his brain. Reach forward.
Staging the opening of a new ballet. It reflects the craft Russell Kerr has cultivated over 25 years. He'll need it to flesh out the shape of fresh ideas for young dancers. It takes energy, enthusiasm, and above all, persistence. The upshot was Ballet Rambert, whose progressive, if poverty-stricken style better suited the New Zealand conditions he wanted eventually to return to.
Well, quite frankly, it was at a low financial style at that time. For instance, the tour that I did with Ballet Rambert was of the north of England and Scotland, Airdrie, Dumfries, Greymouth, Troon. I can remember one place we danced that the stage had such a steep rate that it had a tripwire about 3 feet from the edge of the stage. And if we knew if we touched that wire, then we had to do something. We had to get back a little bit. The costumes were held together by the name tags of people who had worn them, which in itself was very interesting, but it didn't always make for good appearance. But it was a good repertoire to dance in, but the style was very much a pioneering style, and I don't think she ever lost that. And I never saw Ballet Rambert without that feeling of pioneering. Even later, many years later, when I went back, and she was then pioneering completely new style, something which was way out. She came to me in an interval when I went back many, many years later, and she asked me what I thought of a particular ballet. And I hadn't liked it. I hadn't even understood it. It was two dancers running around in raincoats, shining torches at each other. And I didn't understand a thing about this. And I said to her, sorry, I don't really understand that. And she burst into tears. She said, "What have they done to you? You've lost your soul. You have no soul." She was always on to look to the future. And I think this had a tremendous impression on me.
Back home, Russell's career shifted from dancing to teaching, coaching and producing, with a steadily growing interest in choreography and the occasional guest role as a dancer. His approach to all activities was firmly grounded in a drive towards excellence, and he encouraged his students to seize every opportunity. From 1957 to 1961, he taught with the Nettleton Edwards School in Auckland, coaching and producing the school's performance group, the Auckland Ballet Theatre, and creating for them opportunities to perform for television broadcasts. In 1959, he began what was to be an ongoing relationship with the recently established New Zealand Ballet, later the Royal New Zealand Ballet, led by Danish director Paul Gannat. Russell brought with him dancers from the Auckland Ballet Theatre to expand the corps de ballet for the classical repertoire, and together the two directors created a major contemporary ballet, Prismatic Variations, the first produced by the company. Russell also secured additional guest artists for this season, the celebrated expatriate New Zealand dancers Rowena Jackson and Sarah Neal. In 1962, Russell became the New Zealand Ballet's artistic director and led the company until 1968. Major innovations of his period as director were the staging of full-length ballets with live orchestras and international guest artists, and his creation of several modern ballets for the company repertoire, including Concerto in 1963, Mephisto in 1964, and the family-oriented Peter and the Wolf in 1962. From 1969 to 1977, Russell created 6 new works for the New Zealand Ballet and led the newly established New Zealand Dance Centre in Auckland. He taught classical ballet and provided performance experience with a Dance in Schools company, which toured to Fiji in 1973.
Do you have a style as such?
Yes, I think I do. It's a style that has developed out of my own endeavours to say something that is very particular. By that I mean that I haven't studied somebody else's style and said, right, I'd like to do a little bit of that. It's developed in the initial stages largely out of necessity, I think, because I had to do the style of work which was going to be wanted by the public. Now, this is not a very good thing for a choreographer, I don't think, to develop in this way. You've got to want to do it because you want to say something. And only after all these years is it getting to the stage that I can do that.
While many of his inspiring professional dancers were headed for ballet careers, he also taught a trio who became founding members of Lim's dance company, Kilda Northcott, Mark Baldwin and Julie Dunningham. Russell was a great supporter of Lim's, seeing them as providing a desirable fusion between classical ballet and modern dance, and championing their choreography as directly relevant to contemporary audiences. He taught Lim's company class often and choreographed 2 works on them, Russell's Dance in 1979 and Les Enfants de la Réalité in 1983.
We take the hands. These hands are most important as you take them up. You're reaching out to touch each other, to feel. Right, can you just go down once again and say that we get from here. So, and now as you bring the arms up, over, that's it. Now the fingers, let the fingers go over, and then just feel the touch. So that you touch each other, and then they come down from here. And then when you roll out from here, out, and stay, and up, and hold. Stay. When we get to that point,
in 1978, Russell moved to Christchurch and became artistic director of the Southern Ballet Theatre.
Together, lots of sideways movement.
There he focused on teaching, coaching, choreographing and producing their youth performance works until his retirement in 1990.
All right, now we're moving to it now. Now pull and establish your control. Now let it flow. Way around. Don't be late, Corinne. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 2. That's it. Now suspend it. And let it go. 1, 2. That's right. Now look at the line. 2. Lift your head up now. And stretch.
For many years, the energy behind Southern Ballet has been Russell Kerr. He's always argued that the South Island needs a professional base for dance.
Over it. Ha 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 ha. We must have a yardstick by the way in which all young people can measure themselves in this country. And it is absolutely essential that this applies to the smaller areas as well as the big areas.
Russell continued to work with the Royal New Zealand Ballet, producing several notable ballets including Petrushka, featuring Douglas Wright in the title role, and Peter Pan, with Sir John Trimmer in the role of Captain Hook.
Everybody can visit their own Neverland. It's a way of escaping, and the things that happen there happen in your particular way. Week after week after week, hour after hour, getting the steps right. And as you get older, that's not always the easiest of things to do. But I must say, I didn't have any dancers saying, oh, yeah, I can't recognise that.
In 2005, Russell created a new full-length ballet based on the secret life of Hans Christian Andersen for the International Ballet Academy in Christchurch. Russell was vice patron of the Auckland Dance Company, patron of the International Ballet Academy, and a trustee of the Christchurch Dance Education Bursary Trust. Throughout his career, Russell has been acclaimed as one of the country's great ballet choreographers and has received high honours for his services to ballet and dance in New Zealand. These include a Queen Elizabeth II Arts Council Fellowship, awarded in 1977, and a Queen's Service Medal for services to ballet in the New Zealand dance community in 1986. In 2000, Russell was appointed an Officer of the New Zealand Order of Merit and is an icon artist of the Arts Foundation of New Zealand.
Now, the elbows go baba, hold it.
It's been Russell Kerr's language for half a century.
When I was young, people looked at me rather strange, thought, who's this guy who's doing this ballet business?
Now, after a career on Europe's stages, he's inspired many others to join it.
I don't think I'd be here without his passion and inspiration.
Because of that leadership, he's been made an arts icon.
To be considered an icon is a tremendous thing, really, and not something you expect.
Kia ora. My name is Suzanne Smith. I'm the chair of the New Zealand Dance Festival Trust. Each year, the board has the very great pleasure of selecting a person to be honoured for having made a significant contribution to dance in New Zealand. In the past, we have honoured choreographers, dancers and teachers from a number of genres. The list of honorees includes such greats as Douglas Wright, Glenn Mayo, Lynn Pringle, Dorothea Ashbridge and Jackie Cezanne. In 2018, we are delighted to honour another great artist, dancer and teacher, Russell Kerr. Russell had an outstanding career in ballet, including dancing with both Sadler's Wells Royal Ballet and Ballet Rambert, before returning to New Zealand. Here, he taught, directed and choreographed his way into the hearts of New Zealanders, providing many years of service to dancers, most notably as director of the Royal New Zealand Ballet. Due to ill health, a live honouring sadly isn't possible, but once again Russell has led the way as we gather to virtually honour him. The Tempo team and myself have been wearing a pounamu with love and respect for Russell, and this is on its way to him as a small token of our thanks for his significant contribution to dance in New Zealand.
My name is Toby Bean. It's sad in a way that I'm actually recording this video message because it means that the original event for honouring Russell live isn't taking place. But in another way, I'm actually thrilled to have the opportunity to record this message and to be able to share it with you. So let me greet some people first of all. Those who are watching, anyone who's watching this message, I'd like to say hi to you. To those others who are also contributing messages and speaking about Russell, I'd like to greet you as well. And finally, to you yourself, Russell, and also June, hi, my sincere greetings to you. I'm sincerely thrilled that Tempo is giving you this honour, Russell. It's incredibly appropriate that we together speak about and honour the immense contributions that you've made to dance in New Zealand. And actually, I have to be honest here, it's quite limiting to think about your contributions to dance just in a New Zealand context, because let's be honest, your work with London Festival Ballet, the other companies who you danced with, the international artists you worked with and that you affected and inspired as well, your impact on dance is far greater than New Zealand alone. But we're here today to talk about your contribution to New Zealand dance. And really I thought that the most appropriate way that I could do that myself is actually simply to speak about the experiences that I've had with you, how you've shaped me as an artist. I'm going to leave it to other people to kind of enumerate the wonderful legacy you've given to New Zealand dance in terms of the works that you've created and the roles that you've taken in that too. Today, I just want to speak about my encounters with you, Russell, because I think they give such a great insight into who you are and what you've contributed. We met in 1990 at Southern Ballet, and I spent 1 year with you there. And 3 things kind of stick out to me about that time. One thing is that as a dancer, I remember you gave me the role of a very tempestuous violin player in your production of Christmas Carol in 1990. That, Russell, was a huge role for me. It actually affected who I was to become as a performer later on. You found abilities within me that I didn't know I had myself. That's a gift that you've got. It's a gift that you extended to others, and I saw you doing that with others. But so vividly, I remember you discovering in me something that I wasn't aware of, and that had a huge effect on me as a performer. Also, while I was at Southern Ballet, you may recall you encouraged me to take the next step in my career, to move on to the New Zealand School of Dance, something I was very timid about, but it was you who encouraged me to go and take that next step. There's a pattern forming here. And thirdly, Russell, the thing that strikes me about that first year at Southern Ballet, I remember how hard I saw you working, and the company that I was with, the company of dancers at Southern Ballet, genuinely loved and respected you for everything that you did. That stays with me to this day. I've seen a lot of people leave organisations and have gifts presented to them when they leave. 1990 was your last year at Southern Ballet, and the dancers didn't get together to give you a bottle of wine or a box of chocolates. I remember they clubbed together to get something that was your passion, a greenhouse. It's no ordinary gift, but these guys clubbed together and we gave you a greenhouse, something which you loved and treasured, I know, in Kerr's cottage there in New Brighton for a number of years too. So I saw how much you were admired and respected by these people, and that stayed with me and always has stayed with me. The next time I encountered you though, Russell, after I went to the New Zealand School of Dance, was in my second year there. I was a student in my second year, and I don't know if you know this, but when I met with you at the competition which I took part in as a dancer, it was about halfway through my second year. You were judging on the panel of that competition. I don't know if you know it, but I was that close to quitting. I was about to quit and leave all the work that I had done because I was so discouraged with where I was. And it was a conversation with you, and it was at that competition, Russell, that I turned around and I decided that I was going to stay, that I was going to persevere. And that was a hugely influential encounter that I had. I honestly think that if it hadn't been for that conversation with you, I would have packed it in later on there too. The third encounter I had with you, Russell, or the third real phase of my relationship with you was after I'd had 4 years at the Royal New Zealand Ballet, and I came down to myself take over a role at Southern Ballet as a choreographer. And I'm sure you will remember me coming to you time and time and time again throughout my stint at Southern Ballet there. I would come to you for advice for choreography, for the narrative ballets that I was doing. I'd come to you for advice about the management situation that I was going through and I needed help and mentoring, and always your door was open and you would coach me and mentor me and guide me through those situations. But Russell, here's the crucial thing that I want to say to you about how you guided and coached me in those situations. Because all the time when I had what might have been petty difficulties with what I was creating or how I was performing or the environment, all the time that I brought these things to you, you always pointed me beyond my problems to the art form itself. So rather than being about Toby Behan's choreography or how Toby Behan's coping today with the management structure of Southern Ballet, you would always gently point me beyond me to the art form itself. You started to turn my thinking from how I was doing to what I was contributing to this art form that was clearly and always so precious to you. Yes, you gave me incredible counsel through those years, but it was the shape and the direction of that counsel as much as anything else that was so influential and that still shapes how I think today. The last thing I'd like to mention, Russell, is actually the Ballet Peter Pan. You may recall that Mart Skoog, the director of the company at the time, offered me the opportunity to work alongside you as a junior co-choreographer with the Ballet Peter Pan. And that was such a huge opportunity for me to kind of work alongside you. And even now, Peter Pan is a ballet that has such a treasured place in my heart because of that opportunity that I had to work with you. And despite the fact that I had spent, by that stage, 2 years working on narrative ballets myself at Southern Ballet, in the 2 months that I had working alongside you, Russell, you taught me more about the construction of developing narrative ballet than I had learnt in all the time by myself. Seeing what you did right from the beginning with your notes, how you took the notes from the story, and I've still got those notes you gave me. By the way, I think they're a vivid example of the genius that you have when it comes to creating story ballets. So from watching you take those notes from the story and then collaborating with Philip Norman, turning those sketches into musical ideas and then into character expressions, and then those sessions we had with movement where we started fleshing those things out, being a part of the process that brought that story to life was such a joy. And I remember when eventually it became time for me later on to restage that ballet for the Royal New Zealand Ballet, when you said to me, treat this as your own ballet, Toby, that was such a huge gift to me. And there, I think, is a snapshot again of the genius and the dedication that you have to the art form. You coached me in the process, you involved me in the process, beyond me to the art form, and you helped me pass that on to others. Honestly, Russell, the greatest gift that you ever gave me was the ability to think about the art form of ballet itself, to look beyond me to the art form of ballet. You gave me a desire, a genuine desire, to see ballet evolve, to see it develop within New Zealand, to want to pass that on to others. That's something that you were doing all throughout your career, Russell. I'm so aware of it, and personally, I'd love to testify to that here today. For that, Russell, and for so many things, I honour you and I thank you. Ngā mihi nui ki a koe, Russell. Thank you so much.
Yes, hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mart Skoog, and I am a former artistic director of the Royal New Zealand Ballet. And it gives me great pleasure to have this privilege to contribute to this tribute for Russell Kerr. Russell Kerr, a true giant of New Zealand culture, I would say. Now, Russell started a very successful dancing career himself in Europe, but decided to return very early on. In 1957, I believe it was, he returned to New Zealand to continue pursuing his working life in Christchurch, or in New Zealand. And it is my opinion that had Russell decided to continue to pursue his own personal career in Europe, he would today be considered one of the true masters in the ballet world and have taken on a role of international importance. I had the privilege of working together with Russell on 4 different occasions during my time as artistic director of the Royal New Zealand Ballet. 4 different productions. First, his production of Swan Lake, which he produced in 1996, a production that the company had a lot of pleasure out of, a very fine rendering of the ballet, I think. Secondly, it was his revival of his Petrushka, which in my opinion is one of the most authentic renderings of Petrushka that I have seen, and it's a real treasure, and I hope it will remain, be kept for generations to come in New Zealand, that it will be seen again. Then thirdly, we also collaborated on his fantastic Peter Pan. That was so charming, and actually, again, a ballet production that the Royal New Zealand Ballet had a lot of pleasure out of for a long time. It was revived several times, I think. And then finally, he also choreographed A Christmas Carol for the Royal New Zealand Ballet. Those were the 4 ballets that I had the pleasure of working together with Russell on. And then, of course, there was all the other occasions when I met Russell, both socially on a private basis, but also professionally, where we would have connections over the years, over all the years that I worked and lived in New Zealand. Now, I'm very privileged to be able to contribute to you today, Russell. I wish I could be there to share this moment with you when you receive all of this so well-deserved tributes from many, many other people too, I'm sure. So Russell, thank you for everything that you've done, not just for me personally and the Royal New Zealand Ballet, but for ballet and dance in New Zealand in general. Your contribution goes beyond appreciation. Take care, Russell. Thank you.
Dear Russell, I'm so pleased we're honouring you this year at Tempo Dance Festival. Fantastic. And so sad you can't be with us, but here's my message to you. And my first memory of working with you was probably in classes at the National School of Ballet, 1968. We were little ballet students, and you came in director of the New Zealand Ballet and did classes with us, or taught us, and they were wonderful. It was an absolute revelation how musical and inventive the classes choreographically were. And then in 1969, I was in the ballet company by then, and you invited me to work with you on a new solo of a new work you were making, which was very thrilling. And I was always sorry that I never got to follow through, because I got that RAD scholarship and went off to the Royal Ballet School and etc. So scroll forward 10 years, 1976, 77, I'm in ballet classes back in New Zealand, back in ballet classes again with you, and I meet, as well as enjoying your ballet classes, of course, I meet the founder members of LIMS, especially Mark Baldwin, Christian Eddies, Kilda Northcott, actually, key dancers. And so that was very fortuitous. And then I showed you some of my work. I remember I showed you the beginning of the reptile dance I was making, and you were very positive about it, which was huge encouragement for me, because I was a very new choreographer at the time. Really appreciated your support. And then later that year, I think, maybe the following year, we were in Christchurch, and you were making a work on us, Russell's dance. We did classes with you, and you choreographed on us, and that was on LIMS, of course, and that was really exciting. And yeah, and so our LIMS work carried on, and you carried on, and I always loved your work you did with the New Zealand Ballet. And then actually just a few years ago, I remember I sent you and June an invitation to come and see my work in Flagrante, and you came along. Thank you so much, and you were very open to be attending it and very positive about it, and we had a cup of tea a couple of days later, and that was wonderful. And Russell, I just want to say that I think you are on a par with Balanchine with your choreography. I think your musicality, your invention, your humour, and such wonderful talent, easily on a par with Balanchine. You're New Zealand's Balanchine, and just really want to honour you.
Hi Russell, sorry you couldn't be here for the honouring. I just wanted to say that for myself personally, I'll be forever grateful for your support, your mentoring, your belief in me, and the amount of energy that you have put into dance here in New Zealand as well. I know from my own journey, meeting others along the way, and how huge an impact you have had on dance here in New Zealand, and on so many different dances. Your commitment and your energy to giving back, to inspiring, it's just, for me personally, has made a huge impact. And I'd just like to say thank you so much. This is for you, Russell. My dedication to you. I will never forget those practices at Southern Ballet on the weekends, the performances that we did at the Southern Ballet Theatre, all the amazing, beautiful ballets that you choreographed. And it was such a pleasure performing in your ballets. All of those ballets, for me, taught me so much, and your inspirational leadership and the way that you dealt with us as young people, and it was just so inspiring. So I'm so pleased that Tempo has decided to honour you this year, and I really feel for the significant contribution that you have made, it's so fitting. So congratulations, Russell, and wish you were here.
Dear Russell, I'm not really stretching, that's a false leg. Look, my dear Russell and June, without you, the Royal New Zealand Ballet would not be here today. You were always there after you'd been director when we needed somebody to just come and pick us up by the bootstraps and make us work again. But when you were director, that was the most wonderful thing. Your productions were brilliant, and I loved especially the Nutcracker. I tried to work hard as best as I could, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But Petrushka, oh, how wonderful. But there were so many wonderful productions through the years. Even when you ran the Auckland Dance Centre, they were lovely days. Russell and June, thank you for being you. Thank you for all that brilliant hard work. And I wish we were all together to celebrate you. Keep going nicely, my friend. Love you both.